Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's Linkability Insights live stream. I'm your host, Lynnaire Johnston, coming to you from Dunedin, New Zealand today. I'm very excited about our guest who has elected and was very kind enough to join us because I want to talk today about safety on LinkedIn. However, our guest has got so much knowledge about LinkedIn that I am going to be asking her just a few other questions as well. So I do hope you'll enjoy our conversation today with Brynne Tillman. But before we bring Brynne on the stage, let's just go through a bit of housekeeping. We really welcome your questions. Please pop them into the comments and we'll make sure that Brynne answers them for you. Please also say hello and tell us where you're from in the comments. We really love to know where people are tuning in from on our live events. Our people in the background, our fabulous producer of today's show is Cher Ferguson. She's also in the comments making sure that everything runs well, and we never start one of our events without a special mention to our chief inviter to our events, Meryl Cass. Thank you, Meryl. Always lovely to have you with us. Now, today's guest is coming to us live from New York. Brynne Tillman is an expert par excellence around matters LinkedIn. She's been talking about LinkedIn for so much longer than I have, and she is amazing. People that I have talked to about her absolutely love her, and they are very keen for me to have her here today to talk about LinkedIn safety. Brynne, hello, kia ora from New Zealand.
Hello, Lynnaire. Thank you so much for having me today. I am so excited to be on this live with you, and I'm really excited to talk about this really important topic.
Well, I think it's very timely, and what brought it to my attention was the fact that you did a really interesting thing a week or so ago. You wrote a post about safety on LinkedIn, and then you pointed it to your article on Substack. Now, I'd not seen that before, so I thought that was a really good time to reach out and ask you to come and talk to us about safety. But before we get started, do tell everybody, there's nobody who doesn't know who you are, but do the usual thing and tell people who you are and what you do and hold up your books.
Oh, that's all I care about today. So I'm Brynne Tillman. I run a LinkedIn sales training company. We primarily work with large organizations with Sales Navigator, and we customize programs. But I also have a membership where entrepreneurs get together. We have two coaching meetings a week, and we have a lot of fun doing that too. I'm also the co-author of Prompt Writing Made Easy with Bob Woods and Stan Robinson Jr. And this is still on pre-order, but October 6th, the LinkedIn Edge with Jeb Blunt, this launches. It's my first Wiley book. And so I'm really excited, and rumor has it, look for it in airports.
Oh, wow. That makes going on a trip worthwhile if you can find the books you want to read.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to be like taking pictures everywhere going, this is me.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you were able to join us today because it was relatively short notice. And I do understand that you have one or two things going on. So let's dive right into it and talk about LinkedIn safety as a starting point. Why is it so important right now? What is the problem, and why do we need to be looking at this for ourselves really carefully?
Yeah, this is such a great question. It's such an important topic. So I'll start by saying this isn't new. The shutdowns have been happening for a very, very long time. So why now? LinkedIn launched what we believe is an AI program that is automatically shutting accounts down that they believe is breaking their user agreement 8.2.2 without a human being looking at it. And to the best of my knowledge, that had not happened before. So it's really in mass. I had 3 clients and a brother shut down all in 1 week. And I went, all right, I got to get on this, right? And you know, there is a place where you can submit an appeal, but again, there's no human being looking at this, so there's no empathy. There's no right, like it's literally AI making a decision on our careers, on our professional networks, on all the things that we've now built our entire business world around. Has been, LinkedIn is the hub of everything for everyone who's in a B2B world. And so it's really scary. So I felt like I had to really put out a warning.
And was the issue that caused these restrictions the same for all of those people? Or is LinkedIn really trying to shut down people on a variety of different reasons? So that's the question, really. Is LinkedIn using just one reason or many?
So we've identified 2 major reasons, but the first line of detection from LinkedIn is based on Chrome extensions. Yes. So if you have a Chrome extension, and by the way, I have quite a few Chrome extensions that I had to go in and say, not that I'd ever break LinkedIn's user agreement, but is there any part of this extension I'm not using that does break the user agreement? And I have some of my favorite extensions I had to retire. And it was devastating to me, but there were pieces of it that could be construed as scraping. For example, my absolute favorite is getmagical.com. It's a short code program, but it scrapes their name when I get to a message, and I've never looked at that as scraping, but it is. So so I had to retire that. I had to take it off of Chrome. And I had 3 or 4 that were kind of, I'm not sure, but I can't risk it, right? No. I can't risk it. So that's the first line of detection. Now the next line is they've detected this. Now it starts to look at logins. Do you have someone logging in? Do you have 2 people across the world logging in at the same time? Do you have, someone working on your account with a methodical, like every day they're going in with 50 engagements and 30, so there's this consistent exact number, right? That's usually when we've outsourced our profile to someone. So it is tracking that, but I have not seen that be the first line of detection. So everyone that I've talked to that has gotten shut down, even if they weren't using the Chrome extension, had one that was breaking the user agreement.
It sounds like a lot of people could get caught out on either of those things, particularly the Chrome extensions. Can I ask whether or not the same applies to other browsers? I, for example, use Edge.
Yeah, Edge. I call everything a Chrome extension. It's like calling it Kleenex. So it'll capture it on Edge. It'll Safari if I don't even know if they have extensions, but yeah, and I use Magical on Edge occasionally, and because I do have a PC for testing how things work, and I had to take it off of there as well.
Do you think that LinkedIn has ramped up its shutting down of engagement pods?
So that's an interesting question. I would say, so an engagement pod is a very gray area. An engagement pod where everyone is obligated to engage every time someone shares is really frowned upon by LinkedIn. right? There is an absolute, like, I don't know how they're going about shutting it down, but I do know they're burying the content. So if you post content and you have the exact same 7 people engage on it every single time, it stops showing that content. So to the best of my knowledge, that's the only defense they've sort of taken on.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm in a lot of chats, like where, there are 15 or 20 of us, that it might be seen as a pod, but there are no rules, right? If this resonates with you, go engage. If you like it, comment, but there's no obligation there. And I have not seen any ding to the voluntary pod-like programs, because it's not picking up that pattern of exact engagement. So, but I don't know for sure. That's just been my experience.
So what are the other sins or crimes that people commit on LinkedIn that might see them end up in LinkedIn jail?
Yeah, I would say those are the primary, but anything you're doing that mass messaging, even to your first degree connections, can be seen as spammy. If you send connection requests at bulk and people either ignore them or decline them, can hurt you. I do recommend to all my clients that they go back once a month and withdraw a lot of their outstanding requests, so you don't have hundreds outstanding at a time. And then LinkedIn tells you it's about 3 weeks before you can send out another request. So if they were important enough, kind of put them in a little tickler, and then go back and connect after about 3 weeks. So, so that is definitely an issue. Another one is if you tag too many people in a post and they either don't engage or they untag themselves, that could be seen as spam. And of course, if you send something to someone and they report it as spam or they block you, that will hurt as well.
That makes sense. You've mentioned that there is an update coming of the terms and conditions. It seems to be an annual event on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, there are 2 things around this that have caught my attention. The first is that there's another flurry of people going, oh, I didn't know that LinkedIn was using my content to train its AI, when that was last year. But secondly, the thing that seems to me most interesting is that, and I would like your confirmation on this because I haven't really done a lot of research on it myself, is how Microsoft is now able to use our content to share with its affiliates. Now, the idea of the word affiliates is very vague, and I'm not entirely certain exactly what that means. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So, so affiliates can be anyone. An affiliate to Microsoft could be every one of their clients, which is everyone in the world almost, right? Yes. So we don't exactly know how they're going to use it, but they're certainly getting permission to use it. You can turn off the toggle in your privacy and settings that says you are not allowed to use my content to train your bots to share. But the unfortunate thing is the default is on. So if you don't know, you may not even know that you probably got a little tiny blue bar message at the top of your LinkedIn that said, click here to look at the new user agreement, and you didn't read it. And I only read LinkedIn's, but I can't tell you how many other platforms I don't read, right? I only read LinkedIn's because I want to let you guys know. But like, if, I don't know, Instagram had an update, I'd have no idea that they were taking all my content. which, by the way, they can, because it's Facebook and they own everything. So they own all the pictures of my grandbabies. They own, I mean, they do. It's a very strange world that we live in today, that our IP is gray area. Like, our IP is sort of disappearing a little bit. And this is one of the ways that that's actually happening. They don't own the IP of your content, but they own the content you shared, meaning they can use it and cut it up and do whatever they want with it without having to ask us permission. And they don't have to give us credit.
Yes. And there is a lot going on legally around that, as I understand it at the moment, with various class action suits happening about the problem that is particularly causing. Because you've written 2 books, I've written 2 books, and that supposedly makes them public property, and AIs and other, any kind of LLM, and I guess Google too, can just take our content from those and reuse it, repurpose it, and, as you say, no attribution at all. Whereas if you and I were quoting somebody else, we would be making sure that the person got a credit for what we were using and quoting them. Well, I used to be a journalist. That was one of the things that was just best practice, standard operating procedure when it came to things like that, Brynne. But the rules have changed. That is definitely for sure. Hi, Kevin. Nice to see you. And so I want to move on and ask you a little bit more about some of the safety angles and what we can do to protect ourselves. Somebody this morning mentioned to me that they had been on one of my events previously. I'm not sure what this says about my events, actually, but let me finish. The event, she met somebody who reached out to her and said they'd like her resume, presumably because they had an opening somewhere, but it turned out to be spam. And I think that most of us can be said that we are receiving messages from people who just want to sell to us, who want to just, spam message us, connect to us, and then just pitch slap, I think it's the word. But there must be something
so they both sound right.
Right. So there must be some things that we can do to try to mitigate that, to lower the risks of getting messages like that, or worse, responding to messages like that, Brynne, because if people are using AI, of course, for writing comments, writing DMs, and it's getting harder and harder to tell what is real and what is not, right? So what can we do to make it safer for ourselves on LinkedIn with these messages coming at us?
So that's a great question. I mean, my mission is to help people start trust-based conversations without being salesy. That's my whole professional purpose. So from what can we do better? And the connect and pitch is a bait and switch. We know this, right? We know that when we are spammed, we delete. It's gross. But there's so many of us that are still doing it. And here, I'll start with why I think it's happening. Okay. I think people in a sales role, in a business development role, whether you're the entrepreneur and the owner, or you will work for a company, you love your product. And you believe talking about your solution is valuable to your prospect. Telling them that you can help them book more calls, you think is valuable to them, but it's not. That is valuable to you. That is narcissism. So the challenge, and it can be fixed, but my next book is The Narcissistic Salesperson and the Journey to Recovery. Because that is 100% where people are showing up. It is not an intention to spam people. The intention is to sell. However, the people on LinkedIn, they don't have an intention to buy. They're there to learn, to network, to engage. And we have an obligation to bring value And value is defined by the consumer of that content. We do not define whether or not that content is valuable. It's the person consuming it that makes that decision. So we have to seriously step back and look at what we're doing and answer this first question. If I received this message, how would it make me feel? And most of my clients or my prospects, when we're talking about this, go, icky. I'm like, so why are we out there making people feel icky? Let's just stop. Let's detach from what the prospect is worth to us and attach to what we are worth to the prospect. Let's come at this by my goal is to bring as much value as possible, which will earn me the right to have the sales conversation at the appropriate time with the appropriate person. It will also earn me the right to get introductions. So I cannot tell you how many people will approach me and say, hey, I was talking to my buddy Craig and I mentioned I really want to learn LinkedIn more and he sent me to you. I don't know Craig. I'm connected to Craig. I engage, I share content. But my goal, I've never pitched Craig, even though he's a first degree connection, right? And so, but I've likely brought value or he would not have thought of me when someone said. So the way I want, kind of the message I want to get out there really is we've got to approach this as we're going to show up as the trusted advisor, the resource, and the partner that people want to have a conversation with. And it's not a discovery call every single time. We've got to slow down the outreach to speed up the outcome. This is, if you are selling a $25 click here to buy, LinkedIn's not your platform. This is for people that need to have a conversation with their buyer before they can make a sale. So let's take a look at what is the activity that we're doing? What is the messaging that we're doing? And is it working toward or against our goal? I love how Leslie spells her name.
So do I. It's really cool, isn't it? And that makes it memorable. I'm big on being memorable. Now, I'm lucky. I've got an unusual name. Actually, you've got an unusual name too. There are no other Brynne Tillmans on LinkedIn, no other Lynnaire Johnston.
Not yet.
Yeah, which makes you and I unique, which is fantastic. But I think memorable and doing something like that is a really good idea, mind you, whether that's probably the real spelling of her name. But I think the point about being memorable and being trustworthy on LinkedIn, they kind of work together. And my concern of recent times, Brynne, has been that with the deluge of AI that we're seeing both on LinkedIn and in our business lives generally, that trust is being eroded because now there's avatars of us. People can put up videos that look and sound like us, and people might be doing that with all the best intentions in the world. But how can we really know that the person that we're talking with, i.e. communicating with on LinkedIn via direct messaging, how do we really know that that's an actual person at the other end and not a bot?
So there are a lot of little tips, and I'm not using them. So, but I'll share them. One is you can put an emoji in your name, at the end of your name, so that when it grabs your name, if it's automated, the emoji showing up, it doesn't know to not use that. But a human being typing your name would not use the emoji. So I would say that's one of the bigger ways, that's the wrong word, a popular, easier way. That's a better word. This is what happens at 7:30 at night. My words start to get all whooshed together. But I don't do this. I know quite a few people that do. And so, that's probably one of the easiest ways to determine whether or not it's automated or not. The other thing, and this is what I do occasionally, is I will respond to a message with a question. And so at this point, I haven't seen AI or automation good enough to identify that I asked a question so it passes it on to a person. So if someone, let's say it's a connection request and says, hey, how would another 10 new clients work for you this month? If you're interested, let's connect. And I actually won't accept. I will reply with, what's your success rate? Or what's your favorite color sometimes? Or if on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful are you? And I just play with it. And then I get a response. Thanks so much for connecting. And I didn't even connect. So, there are little things that you can do. So the big one that I do primarily, I think over the many, many years is, may I ask how you found me?
Yes. That's a good one.
Yeah. And then, AI doesn't know. So,
And it's a good way to start a conversation, Brynne. If they've come out of the woodwork, if they haven't identified themselves as someone who has been commenting on your post, for example, then asking that question makes a lot of logical sense. And I often find too that when you do ask that question, they'll say a name. They'll give you a name of somebody who mentioned you, like you gave that example of earlier, and then you can go back to that person and thank them for just mentioning you, because obviously they will have done so in a positive way. And I like the idea then of passing that back. They've given your name as someone who is trusted, so acknowledge that, thank them for that, and then that is going to reinforce their feelings and understanding about you, that you are someone who is a good person to work with, and that builds that trust. And that's, as you say, that's exactly what you are doing. Is your whole ethos is around building trust with people. And I think that's becoming harder now with AI. But those of us who've been on LinkedIn a reasonable length of time, and you have been on LinkedIn a lot longer than me, I think the fact that we have built up on our profiles a really good track record of what we've done, the events we've been on, the milestones we've achieved, the projects that we've been involved with, the size of our network, the number of recommendations that we've got, all of those things tell other people who might be looking at our profiles that we are real, we are genuine, and that we are good people to work with. And I don't think that AI is going to be able to overcome that in the short term, at least. Now, I was a naysayer of AI up until the beginning of the year. Now I'm an avid fan, I don't mind admitting, and loving it and learning more about it every single day and what it can do for me. But I would like to just swivel the conversation more towards AI, because I know that this is an area of expertise for you, and why would I not pick your brains about AI while I've got you here?
Take away.
My current assessment of LinkedIn's own inbuilt AI, well, I don't even need to ask the question, really, do I? Now that was more expressive than any words can describe. Well, let me rephrase the question. How soon do you think LinkedIn's own inbuilt AI will get a more positive reaction, Brynne?
What a great question. So, first, I'll say Sales Navigator has a little bit of AI in the lead and account IQ, which is just pulling in public content, and it can map it to your solutions, and that's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. Your question is, when will even LinkedIn.com, when will the AI be really good? And in my opinion, it won't be great until your Copilot, because Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so it would be Copilot, but I'm happy with ChatGPT but I'm assuming Copilot. When your Copilot syncs so that so right now, if you use a ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever you're using, the more you use it, you're astonished with how well it knows you. and how well it knows your brand. LinkedIn's AI knows nothing about you and it's not learning. So to me, it's really not at the level to even call it AI. It'll say, rewrite this with AI, but it's not rewriting it in your voice. It hasn't learned you. It doesn't know that I constantly say no M dashes. It doesn't know, right? Like it doesn't know me. So to answer your question, when will it? When it can completely sync your co-pilot with LinkedIn, then it will rock.
I bought a new laptop at the beginning of the year with the understanding that it would know all about me and be able to have access to my files and be able to help me with all the things at the back end that I do, but then discovered that it did not. But recently, ChatGPT made some changes that now allows it to sync to my Dropbox where I keep all my files. And now it is able to access those and to give me a summary of my last month's posts, for example, or any analytics that I might want to share with it via my files. And I think that's a really good example of how fast things are happening and the interaction that we are starting to see between different platforms and how we actually use it. I use AI a lot for repurposing my content. Absolutely love the way that it does that, although I do have to hold its hand. Those M dashes drive me mad, Brynne, in the same way that they clearly drive you mad too. And so it's constantly retraining it, and retraining it. But are you seeing from your perspective a lot more people using AI on LinkedIn for their own work, for producing content, for writing comments, and for sending direct messages? Is that really happening at the scale that I think it might be?
Yes. Good, bad, and the ugly. I think the right prompts for content is outstanding, especially when you've linked it to previous content. So, you're building off of your own transcripts, which is one of the things I'd recommend. You have a folder inside of your Dropbox where all your transcripts from all your trainings are. So it's pulling from there, right? It's however you're building in that library, really important. So couple of tricks. Now I have the book Prompt Writing Made Easy, and we have a crispy framework. I'm not going to go through the crispy framework completely right now, but if anyone's interested, please reach out. I'm happy to teach it.
Very good. I've used it. It's great.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll tell you fast. It's context, role, inspiration, scope, prohibitions, and you. So let's talk about why you. The you really, really matters because at the end of every single prompt where you're creating content, not research necessarily, but content, you want your LLM to ask you to interview you based on what content you're looking to write. So what does that mean? I want to write a blog post about what makes the sky blue. I want to be inspired by poets. I wanted an iambic pentameter, and right. Okay. Those are all the things I want. Now, the last line of the prompt is ask me all the questions you need to complete this in my voice, my perspective, one at a time. So I don't know why the sky is blue, but it might ask me a question going, why do you think the sky is blue? Why are you interested in the blue sky? So it interviews you. So the content that it writes is based on your answers, not just research. And by the way, if you are concerned that it will research and grab somebody else's content, you can put in prohibitions, which is one of the do not research, use my words only, use my content only. Do not research, for this particular piece of content. Do not use anyone else's perspective. So that's why the prohibitions really helps there.
That is not something that I have done specifically. except when it comes up with something that I know is not true, a hallucination. It's just trying to be kind or give me what it thinks it wants me to know. And so I do think that would be a good thing for me to add to the prompts that I'm writing. But I have used the question one before, where I'll often say, please ask me 4 questions around this so that you fully understand the parameters of what I'm asking for. And that really seems to make a difference to me, or to the answers that I'm getting. And I'm always surprised at the way that it wants to take me down rabbit holes. I have to confess, at the end of every output, it says, would you like me to do this or would you like me to do that?
It'll go forever.
Yeah, I'm going, I've just got to get the work done. Please do not make this more complicated for me. But it often will give me some ideas that I hadn't thought of.
Absolutely. And there have been ideas that I then adapt into the next things that I do. So, for example, one of the things that I'm trying to build my Substack following. So, BrynneTillman.substack.com. And I've got some really fun content, even outside. It's really sales, business development around trust-based selling. But it will now, like, I will put out a blog post for either my website or an article for LinkedIn, and it will now say to me, do you want a Substack post based on what you just did? Do you want Substack notes to promote this? Do you want, and I wasn't thinking in those terms, and now I do it every single time.
It's doing the same for me too. And I enjoy that when I've got the time to be able to deal with it. But I do find that AI can be overwhelming with what it does put out. It thinks far too fast for my liking. And so you end up with all this content or all of these different files that you're going, I just don't have the time to read all this and to deal with all of this right now. And so I think the overwhelm is a real problem when it comes to AI, but it's also a real problem on LinkedIn, Brynne, because we have to do things on LinkedIn manually. We can't bulk send direct messages, for example, which is a good thing. I just hasten to add. I think that people are finding that there's too much to do and they don't know where to start. They don't know what's the most important, and they don't know what they can quite cheerfully ignore because it'll happen one way or another. So if somebody does come to you and say, look, I'm just overwhelmed with all of this. I don't know where to go, what to do, but I want to be building my network. I want to be building trust. I want to be seen as the expert in my field. What are the things that you tell them that they need to focus on now, because things have changed in the last year? And I think the answer to this question that you will give me, last year would have been different than it is going to be now. So I'd really like to hear your take on that.
So it depends on how deep we want to dive.
So we've got another 20 minutes, so dive away.
And the difference will be, is it an individual, like an entrepreneur, or is it someone from a bigger sales team? Because there is a different answer.
Let's talk about smaller teams, because that's my main audience.
Okay, great. So the first thing we need to do is really define the challenge you solve and the value you're bringing to the marketplace. So a lot of people say the first thing you need to do is your profile. Well, you can't do your profile until you have that value-based messaging, that you understand the why your audience would want a conversation with you. So foundationally, that has to be the first thing. And I'll just share, if it were a bigger customer, we actually will start with, what do you sell and who do you sell to? And that, because it's a much typically broader, right? We sell this to manufacturing and this to logistics. So we break that out first and then go into challenge and the value. But once you have really understood and articulated where they are, the challenge they're facing, and the value, now we can go in and put together a profile and or content strategy based on, and I'll say 5 points. So I'm going in my rabbit hole for a minute. You can pull me out if I go too deep. So the content from a social selling perspective, and your profile, by the way, is a landing page. This is content. The goal of this profile, if you are in a sales or business development role or revenue generating role, is it needs to convert a visitor to a connection and a connection to a conversation. That's its goal. It's not to sell, it's to earn the conversation, right? So that's where we need to be. So this is not a place to pitch. We're really moving from telling people how we can help them to helping them, right? Like, and that's, so we've got to look at that perspective. So now we create the profile to be a landing page that attracts, teaches, and engages folks based on these 5 points. The very first point, and actually I'm going to say the first 2 points are going to happen right in your headline. And if we're talking about content, it's the first line of your content. 2 out of the 5 are in the headline or in the content, which is it needs to resonate with your buyer and create curiosity. That's the goal. So if I look at this and it says CEOs of manufacturing companies, and I go, yep, that's me, I stay. It's second to my name, right? If I see my name, I stop. If I see my role, I stop. So the scroll stopper often is that resonate piece. That's me. So now I'm looking at this. The hook is next. I just saw someone put in the hook. So now I'm like, okay, I'm here. Now I need to create curiosity. This is for me. And now I'm going to look at this and go, this is interesting. I'd like to learn more. I'd like to read more. So now we've brought that, you could call that your hook, right? So it's, it's really like, for me, the line, and you guys can tell me if it's still working because it's very old now, which is, starting trust-based conversations without being salesy. That is built to create curiosity. People are like, yeah, that's, and by the way, if I resonate, so I have, chief revenue officers, and they go, you know what, we don't need trust-based conversations. We have $25 widgets. That's okay, because they're not, we're not for everybody. So there are a lot of folks that say, well, I might turn some people away. Well, are you turning away people that you want to do business with? And if so, then you haven't figured out the value you're bringing or the challenge you're solving. We've got to go back to step 1. So resonate, create curiosity. Now, as they start to scroll through and they get to your about section and the featured section and your activity even, it needs to do now the next 3 things. Teach them something new that they didn't know before they got here. Or create an aha duh moment, a V8 moment. Like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? So now they're like, oh, right, I created curiosity. Now I brought them this value. But let's say what I taught them was how to buy Bitcoin. And that has nothing to do with what I do. So they may have had an aha moment, but it doesn't help me in building a relationship that will earn the right to get a conversation. So number 4 is what they just learned has to get them thinking differently about the way they're doing business today and going, I wonder if this person, can help me do this. Right? So it's resonate, create curiosity, teach them something new that gets them thinking differently about their current situation. And then number 5 is creates the compelling moment, moves them from lurker to engager. We can't start a conversation with them until we know they're there. So we need to move them to a like, a comment, a connection request accepted, a profile visit even, right? So we know they're there. And so all of your content, including your profile, needs, if you are doing this from a revenue generating perspective, has to hit those 5 points in order to convert. That's like step one.
Wasn't such a rabbit hole, really. Some really good, pertinent advice, would have thought, particularly around making sure that you understand the value that you bring, the solution that you offer. Because often people will come to me and say, I need to update my LinkedIn profile because I've been made redundant. But they have got no idea what it is their own particular point of difference is, or whether they even really want to stay in the industry that they've been employed in for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And they might want to pivot into something else, but they've never really thought about that. In which case, really, they need a coach, a job coach, rather than talking to me, because until they really do know that, it's very hard to put into practice the things that you just said.
I have a prompt for that.
Oh, do you?
So if you're interested, reach out to me in Substack, send me a little message. And I have a prompt that will walk you through, what do you love to do? What are you really good at? And it'll walk you to, like, what will people pay you for? So it will help you kind of redefine, it'll ask you for your current LinkedIn profile, whole bunch of fun things, right? So it learns you, and then it'll give you a list of things that that you could possibly do, bringing in all of your skills where you could bring value either into a role or if you're launching a business.
Well, I'll be popping over to Substack after this to ask that for that very prompt. Talking about Substack, Brynne, as I mentioned right at the beginning, this conversation we're having now is based on the fact that you wrote a post on LinkedIn pointing to your Substack article. Now, my understanding is that LinkedIn posts stay within the walls of LinkedIn. They're not publicly available elsewhere, mostly. But articles and newsletters are publicly available, indexed by Google. Are you...
And LLMs. And AI.
Right, exactly. So they are publicly available and can be picked up by LLMs. My concern is, and I'm wondering whether you now building your audience on Substack is the answer to this, is that we're putting a lot of time and effort into our content on LinkedIn that is remaining within LinkedIn, not visible to LLMs. Is it a good idea? Is this your tactic to be building your Substack audience because it is public content that can be seen by LLMs? Is that where you're going with this?
150%. Yes, absolutely. And, I run AI parties. The whole idea is for us to now, like, even Google, if you go to Google something, Gemini's AI is coming up before ads.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got to position ourselves in order to come up. And there's, let me get this right. So there's there's SEO, right, for Google. Yeah. There's GEO, which is generative engine optimization, which is your LLM, for LLM. And there's AEO, which is answer engine optimization. So this is where you go onto Quora or you go into Reddit and start answering questions, because those are being indexed as well. I have not done that yet. I have been exploring, and there's not a ton in what we do on those. But Quora has more than than Reddit. But answering questions is really important. So actually, if you look at my notes right now in Substack, not my posts, they're all Q&A, or 75% of my notes are Q&A. It's a question and an answer, because that is meant, and it's a test to see if those are getting indexed. It's new, But because I'm not on Quora or in Reddit, I thought I'm going to see if Q&A is going to work publicly in notes on Substack. And I'm thinking it might. I'll report back.
That's really interesting, because that's certainly where my thinking is on this AI visibility as well. And I've got a subgroup of my Linkability members community that is looking at AI visibility specifically. And one of the things that we are discussing is how we can be surfaced by AI on different platforms and in different ways. So talk to me a bit more about what you're finding in that.
I have another Substack post on AI parties. So big fan of an AI party. So I just ran one today. So Lynn Hitty is one of the world's leading consultants for inside sales. So she's amazing at BDRs and SDRs. She has a new book coming out for leadership, and how are you leading teams in the inside sales world. She's brilliant. So we get on, and this was a little bit for the book and so we get on to AI, and I said, so what do you want to be known for? And she said, I want to get it right, but she, something around, helping full stack as inside salespeople, like from the beginning to the end of the sale. So I started to ask questions. If I were to hire a consultant for SDR and BDR, who would you recommend? And it had like McKinsey and Bain and like all these big companies. Oh. So I said, well, this is, so I said, and I did, it's for a smaller inside sales team. There's not a big budget like that. Who would you recommend? And it had a couple of other big ones like Rain Group and a couple of others. So then I said to it, I'm looking for a consultant, and I go, what are your expertise that handle the entire life cycle? And so then there was another list, and she came up as like number 9. So but what happened is I was not telling it. I put in questions that led AI to find her, versus me saying, oh, take a look at Lynn Hitty. Is she good? Right. And so it's like a 15 or 20 minute until it pulled her name in. But I kept saying, what do you want to be known for? What do people love you for? And then literally it said, oh, Lynn Hitty would be really good for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I said, so, can I get the top 10 names? And she was like number 3.
Yeah.
It also gave her, I said, why? And I said, why wasn't she coming up in the original list? Mm-hmm. And it gave her a list of reasons. There were like 5 different topics that it was looking for. And I said, go write blogs on these topics. And now you'll start to come up for that too.
It's interesting you should talk about that, because in our Linkability subgroup, looking at AI visibility just yesterday, Brynne, somebody had done that same exercise about me. They were looking to see where they could find me. Exactly the same thing happened. Their original list came up with big organizations, including LinkedIn. How can we ever compete there? And other big organizations. And it wasn't until they drilled down into why isn't Lynnaire showing up on this list that they were able to determine that. Now, the problem that you and I have in terms of not being on those lists and wanting to be there is we can't determine how people are going to ask the question about us. And I understand that people are using AI in different ways. We're all learning, and the prompts that we're using currently are going to change dramatically, as they have already just in this last year. So the questions that people are asking now, and they might be used to asking on Google, are not going to be the same questions that they're asking on AI. But it's going to be extremely difficult for us, those people who want to be surfaced by AI, to know how people are asking those questions. And you're right, we have to find a way to be able to do that, to be surfaceable as the experts in our area. and writing blogs about it, writing Substack newsletters, and obviously answering questions in various places does seem to be a good way to do that. So I've got a really specific question, and then I need to get on to other people's questions because we've got a few that people have asked.
I want to incredible activity in the chat. Keep up.
They're just amazing. They are so busy that I simply can't keep up with the comments. So I just look at the ones that Cher puts in the starred area that are questions that I can ask you, and then I go back and look at the comments later on. My current idea, and this is just an idea that I'm floating, is that articles and newsletters on LinkedIn are a really good strategy content-wise because they can be indexable and found. So that's the first thing. And the second part of that is I am adding into my articles and newsletters recommendations. So I have a number of recommendations on my profile, but that's where they sit, and they just sit there and people don't necessarily see them. People on LinkedIn don't see them, don't know they're there. The same with reviews, by the way. But I'm now starting to add those recommendations with a link back to the person who's recommended me and a photo of them from their profile into my articles and newsletters as third-party authentication, if you like, testimonial recommendation, and building credibility. So is that a reasonable way to be going about using recommendations and testimonials, do you think?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, interesting, I take a screenshot.
Yeah.
With their and then I link their profile to the screenshot, so it's not just text. They see the full. Excuse me. Well, if there's a see more, I'll open it so you can get at least most of it, and then I'll take them back to their profile. So I do love that. And I really do love the image versus just the text.
Yes, I think that probably both are relatively important. That's my theory at the moment anyway, Brynne, and I am doing the same because AI, certainly ChatGPT, can read the text in an image. And so if you are putting the image there of your testimony, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's quite difficult for those of us who run small businesses, I think, to get that third-party endorsement elsewhere. For example, if you are appearing in legacy media articles, then you already authority is being conferred, but it's quite hard without that. So, all right, I'm glad I'm on the right track with that one. So let's go through a couple of questions that people have asked because it's getting late for you and I don't want to hold you up too much.
No, it's all good. I have another call.
Yeah, well, yes, please, you may. Wish you hadn't asked that or said that. Right, so Mike is saying that we're going back right to the beginning of our conversation now. Bad Chrome extensions. Is there a list of them?
Sadly, no. But I would say, there are some things to look at. There's a couple things. Number one, does it automatically open up a profile? Does it scrape any content or from LinkedIn? If it does one of those two things, it breaks the user agreement.
Okay.
But there's no list.
Unfortunately, there is a list of LinkedIn's partners, marketing.
There's a good list.
Yeah.
But so there's not a bad one.
Quickly run through that because I think that's important for people to know about.
There's not a ton, and I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but let me look. But you could probably, so I'm just Googling approved list of LinkedIn extensions and partners. There is a link, and it may even be in my post. I could have, but yeah, I'm not coming up with it right now. It's something I don't typically, I may have a link to that list somewhere, but I think it was from 2019. That was the most recent list I could get.
I think Kevin Turner recently updated that, so we might have that somewhere too. In which case, I'll take it out.
Yeah, go follow Kevin. Anyway, He's a genius. And
Yeah.
yes. Kevin, if you're still here, can you post a link?
He's an amazing man. Really, really enjoy having him
And
on our
also
show.
a wonderful human.
Yes. Oh, he's a gardener too. Did you know that? He shares sometimes photos with me of his amazing property. He's got, it's just astonishing. Anyway, so someone else, Samuel here, so he's saying a premium member. He's entitled to 45 in-mail monthly messages, he says, but this is not happening with his account. So I'm not really sure that's a question I want to ask on the back of this. What I really want to ask you is my perception of in-mail messages is that they are just trying to sell to me. Now, you're a sales navigator expert. Do you see it in the same way?
Yes. So in-mail for me is 99% spam.
Yeah.
It just is. I will probably send 3 to 5 in-mails a year that's outside of training. And the only time I use them is when a company hires me and so we're paying for them. Someone is asking for Gabe is asking for Kevin Turner's information. Maybe Cher can get a link to his profile and stick it.
I don't think that will be any trouble for her at all. She'll drop that into the comments.
Yeah, that's awesome. So because I think everyone needs to follow Kevin.
No, absolutely, they do.
So occasionally I will send an in-mail, and if I do, it's to an executive at LinkedIn that I'm trying to get in touch with, because if they don't answer it, shame on them. But I'm just not. Oh, that's right. It's linkedin.com/in/president. I love that he does that. That is his. So yeah, I teach in-mail because companies ask me to. Personally, I'd much prefer a personalized connection request after someone's engaged. Go
Me
and
too.
look at their content, look at their socially surround folks around them. Find out if you have a second degree connection and get someone to say, hey, they rock. And you can say, hey, I was chatting with Lynnaire on LinkedIn. Your name came up. She says hello. There are so many things that we can do to warm that up. And in-mail is just pure cold calling.
Yes, I very rarely take any notice of my in-mail messages. But do you know, this just came back to mind when you were saying something else recently. I have a feeling that the connection messages that I send to people are based around something that you shared some time ago, which was around the phrase, if you are open to connecting.
Yes.
Was that right? Was that you? Yeah. And that works. So just tell people quickly about that, because that is such a useful way to write a connection message to somebody who doesn't know who you are that you really want to accept.
Yeah. So, I reach out and I'll say, Cher, I really enjoyed the content that you shared on LinkedIn. I invite you to visit my profile. And if you think it makes sense, let's connect. And so, I've reached out with, I like your content, or it might even be something else. It might be your name came up in a conversation. I invite you to visit my profile. If you think it makes sense, let's connect. All of a sudden, they have control, so it doesn't feel like spam anymore. Right? I've not forced myself onto them. And that makes them a lot more comfortable in accepting the connection request. I am permission-based throughout the entire LinkedIn process. Lynnaire, recently I posted content on how to keep your account safe on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if this is of interest, but if it is, let me know. I'd be happy to send you a link. And so we need to slow down our outreach to speed up the outcome. It's about respecting the inbox.
Well, I love that. And I really love the phrase, if you're open to connecting, because I think that really fits into exactly what you were saying. Bill's put a message in about extensions, which I think we've actually covered. So we'll move on from that one, because there is no link. There is no list of them at the moment. And so there was one more here about the, let me just bring this one up and see if do you think answering questions on Reddit or Quora is putting professionals in front of the right audiences?
No, it's not, but it is putting your content indexable on LLMs. So, you're not doing it for the people. Well, I say that. Go look.
Ask AI.
Yeah. Or go look on Reddit, look at the questions that are being asked, and are the people that are asking them your audience. But it really is, it's really about being indexed for I'm not doing it. So I am not doing the Quora or Reddit. I just know that ChatGPT especially indexes those two sites. They also index YouTube. So YouTube is another big one. I mean, and you may start to see this now. If you ask a question, it may actually deliver a YouTube video.
It is. Absolutely. No question at all. I've got one more question for you. I could really stay here all day, but it is getting late at your end. So let me just finish off with this one, and then we'll just do a wrap up with your final takeaway points, Brynne. But tell me what an AI party is. Kevin Turner uses the word party in things like skills parties, I think he talks about. So what's an AI party?
So the AI party is we team up, and I go into LLM and I start asking all those questions to have it identify you as the expert. And then you do the same. And then we go to the next person and we team up and do that. And so over time, the LLM, let's say ChatGPT, it sees you coming up, and if you have people all over the world doing it, it's even better than in your little town, right? So you've got all these people that are asking questions that are leading back to you as the solution. ChatGPT will start to teach itself that you are the solution. If we tell it, so if I have you go in and say, Brynne is the top prompt writer in all of sales, you go, I don't know that's true. But if you ask enough questions where it answers you as with Brynne is a top prompt writer in sales, it believes itself.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, really, doesn't it? Which is, well, in terms of what we're trying to do, is a good thing.
Right. We want the LLM, we want ChatGPT to figure out that we're the best, not have other people tell it.
That makes a lot of sense. I think there's going to be some really interesting more questions around that one, Brynne, for another time.
I have a whole article on Substack.
Right. And I'll be going there to check on that one as well. So takeaways. We've talked about safety on LinkedIn. We've talked about AI. We've talked about trust and messaging, various other aspects of working on LinkedIn to build our businesses. What are the key takeaways from what you have said today? The one message, just one message that will move the needle for people when they have finished watching us today.
Bring as much value to your target audience with the only objective of them going, holy cow, that's amazing. That's how you earn the right. There's a lot more around that, but when you can, I'm going to reiterate, it's my favorite line that I say, which is detach from what the prospect is worth to you and attach to what you are worth to the prospect. When your goal is to bring them value, to elevate their business, to help them succeed, they will ask to work with you.
Perfect. Thank you. If you're not following Brynne or connected to her on LinkedIn, she would love you to reach out and tell her that you saw her here on our Linkability Insight show. You can also find Brynne on Substack now, and she's putting some great content on there too, which is really how I found her for today's episode. So really appreciate your time, Brynne. Thank you for joining us. You will receive another invite from us to return.
I'll do this all the time. This was so much fun, and you're such a great interviewer. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because people in the LinkedIn circle know who you are, but not a lot of people outside in terms of my particular audience know who you are, and now they do. So I really hope they'll pop over to Amazon and buy your book, your books, and read them, because I'll certainly be doing that as well. Hold them up again. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brynne Tillman, for joining us today. We'll be back with another Linkability Insight show for you in a fortnight. So bye for now. We'll see you again soon.